Whew. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Marty Time TV. I'm Marty Caswell. That is Jake Garegnani. We are brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Jake, listen. You and I talked last week. Our last conversation was about what happened when the Padres were eliminated. Your conversation with not your conversation, your question to Manny Machado. I thought I was going to give you 1 week off to go ahead and do your thing, talk about San Diego State, STFC, the NFL, anything else. But man, lo and behold, the shocking news came yesterday that Mike Shildt had suddenly resigned. AJ Preller holds a 44-minute press conference today. First of all, how are you today? Number one, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Been working like crazy, but doing quite well. How are you today, Marty? That's the more important question.
I'm frazzled. I'm having more Wi-Fi issues today. Spectrum says it's the weather issues. It's like storming Pacific Beach. It's a disaster. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. What stood out to you from AJ Preller's 47-minute press conference today?
Lots of breakdown when you consider how long it was. You called that, by the way. Texted me beforehand. You said, I think it's going to go 40 plus. And I thought it was going to go 30, but you were all over that. I kind of walked away from that presser feeling that Mike was genuinely just done. And I don't know if you share that sentiment as well, but I kind of was getting the impression that everything that AJ relayed to us, Dennis Lynn had a wonderful article in The Athletic that I also read. I was really getting the vibe that Mike was just worn out, done, and really was finished managing baseball. I know there's been a ton of rumors and stuff swirling, people thinking that maybe he was pushed out, forced out, not getting along with staff, whatever it might be. And maybe I'm naive to think it, but I kind of left that presser going, I think the man was genuinely burned out. But I would love to also hear your thoughts on it too, because as you mentioned, we typically don't share the same opinion, which I think is good. What were your thoughts on it?
There's a lot there. The number one thing that stood out to me, just because of the line of questioning that persisted a couple different times, was AJ Preller not answering about his own future with the Padres. And I think that to me is noteworthy going forward, especially, what happened. How do you hire a manager when you don't know your own status? Okay. The Mike Shildt thing was interesting because I thought that, that he tiptoed around a lot of things. He said that, number one, that Mike Shildt had been thinking about this during the regular season, but it kind of all came to fruition in Chicago. But I went in differently because I heard from some coaches who were shocked, who were absolutely shocked. And you guys know when you know how it is. Like in that clubhouse, they spend a lot of time together. They're family, right? These guys talk about everything, life, baseball, whatever. So I'm a little bit surprised that no one in the organization seemed to pick up on whatever Mike Shildt was feeling, and like something happened. And I don't know that we're ever going to know, And I always think about the questions I wish I had asked AJ Preller. Like, did anybody try and talk Mike Shildt out of it? So Mike Shildt says he needs time to go ahead and unpack this, right? After the postseason, he goes back home and then he tells John Seidler and AJ and Eric Grupner on Saturday that this is what's going to happen. And my understanding is that, Shildt called each one of his coaches individually to explain what's going to happen. I just kind of find it a little bit strange that he'd been thinking about it for a while and no one caught on. So, I don't know. It's hard for me to say.
It is hard to say. And I think that's why there's a lot of people thinking multiple ways about it. And a lot of people thinking, well, maybe it wasn't just 100% his decision. I think more so than the Preller press conference, what really made me feel that Mike was genuine about this decision was Dennis's article in The Athletic. And you read some of the quotes from Mike himself, because obviously with AJ, we're kind of hearing it through AJ. But some of the stuff that I think Dennis had from Mike was really powerful in a sense of, losing hair and having trouble sleeping and pains and getting death threats and a lot of stuff that I'm sure a lot of managers in MLB do go through. I'm sure this isn't just a Mike thing, but if he really decided that this was best for his health and wanted to enjoy his life, then props to him. I think, to your point, we'll definitely learn a lot more in the coming years as we see how all of this plays out with not only AJ, but with Mike, if he does return to the game. So I do think there still are a decent amount of questions. And the other thing I really thought about during that press conference, and a question that I asked AJ was where did they go from here in an idea of hiring? Because AJ was really proud of the kind of the core group that had been there for a while, coaches, players, front office, saying that what we've built has been an upward trajectory, and statistically that's been true. But if you bring in a new manager from the outside, they're likely going to want to bring in their own staff, their own
Yep.
philosophy, their own way. And so it was one thing that I wanted to hear AJ talk about. And, you know, he didn't give a solid answer as to, hey, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that. But he did mention that outside perspective may be a good thing while trying to keep that core that he already has. How you do that, I don't really know. But that was another big thing that stood out to me, because are they going to hire internally, or are they going to hire externally? Right now in my head, it feels like they're going to go internal, but that's completely a gut feeling on my end.
Internal. So if you're talking internal, that would be the obvious candidates would be, I think Ruben Niebla is something that somebody they have to go ahead and talk to, because he has spoken in the past about wanting to manage. And there's the idea that there's several openings out there, and Ruben Niebla is going to be an attractive candidate. But if you keep Ruben Niebla, then you keep your coaching staff intact, and that's a good thing. And he's beloved by that pitching staff. Other than that, as far as internal candidates, I know AJ Ellis is widely respected. I don't know anybody else that would make sense from within the organization, but I don't know the organization as well as, of course, anybody else does, or AJ Preller does, or what he's thinking. But it's interesting, because I don't know how do you have this conversation with these candidates without addressing your own status? And I know he was asked 3 different times about his own status with the Padres, and he did not answer the question. He just said that we're going to have conversations with the group, with John Seidler and Eric Grupner and the group. So that's why I asked him, like, who's going to make this hire? You know, because my understanding was that Mike Shildt was maybe Eric Grupner's hire. I think that last time, I feel like we do this every couple of years with the Padres, with AJ Preller. But my understanding was, you know, AJ Preller wanted to hire his guy, and that's Ryan Flaherty. And I think he's going to be a hot candidate this time around. So I'm just curious as to, like, who gets the final say on who the next manager is going to be.
And if it is Ryan, he kind of fits that mold of exactly what I was just talking about, where he understands the staff. He knows the staff. He knows the group that is in place. And the fact that Ryan could come in and bring in some sort of outside perspective, having been in Chicago, but also know the group that's already there, makes a lot of sense. So that is why Ryan makes a ton of sense. As far as addressing the AJ.
And he's tied with Manny. And he was tied with Manny. That was Manny's guy. Manny Machado's guy, which is, I'm not sure. I don't know how key it is now as it was a couple of years ago, but we'll see. Go on. I'm sorry.
I agree with that. No, and as far as AJ's contract situation and him kind of not talking about it, I'm not sure. To me, what it sounds like is they really haven't had those conversations yet, which is interesting in its own right. Obviously, if those conversations hadn't taken place, if they do have those conversations and the extension does happen, then it's water under the bridge, whatever. But the idea that those conversations haven't fully taken place yet, or at least not to the extent that AJ Preller's willing to talk about them with the media, is definitely interesting. And to kind of double down on what you're mentioning, like, if you're going to make a hire of a manager and you're on the 1-year deal, either you or somebody asked the question about, does it make it hard to hire the manager when the GM status is up in the air and is in question? And he said, well, I think it's a very attractive job, right? I think it's San Diego. It's a crazy atmosphere, but he didn't answer the question at all in a sense of, what about the general manager's status? And so you almost leave that with more questions than answers, which honestly, a lot of times those press conferences provide that, don't they?
They do. And I think you asked him the question about whether or not, speaking of asking questions, not getting answers, you asked him about whether or not there was any settlement with Mike Shildt on the final 2 years of his deal. And if you can explain what AJ said, what his answer was. Yeah.
AJ answered just saying that he doesn't discuss other contracts.
Which means yes. Right. Which means, yes, there was a settlement, right?
And well, here's the interesting, and I know I've quoted this a few times, but in Dennis's Athletic article, he said that Mike said that there wouldn't be any more, that he would get paid through the end of the month, and then there wouldn't be any more money coming in. Now, that's a quote from Dennis in his article from Mike.
Yeah.
The fact that Preller didn't want to answer it. To me, if there wasn't any settlement, why not just say that? I guess you're kind of leaving more questions than answers. But if they truly have a hard and fast philosophy of not discussing front office contracts, maybe that was his route. But to not get an answer, I was just, if it was true that there was no settlement, that he walked away from 100% of the money, then I don't know what was so hard about saying, yes, he walked away from the final 2 years of his contract, and that's that. Unless they had, like I said, have that hard and fast rule that they can't even mention that about contracts. But I texted you yesterday. I said, I did want to ask that question because I think that would provide some clarity if they did answer it, whether it was 100% Mike's decision or there was a little bit of push. But obviously we did not get that answer.
I'm a firm believer that when there's smoke, there's a little bit of fire. I don't know that anybody in San Diego ever got the answer as to why Mike Shildt was fired by the St. Louis Cardinals after having nothing but winning seasons, right? Manager of the year, playoffs every single year. I don't know what happened there. I've had my own conversations with people who were part of that organization that said that, you know, Mike Shildt had conflict with his coaches and that he berated people and he didn't treat people very well. Maybe things changed in San Diego. I don't really know. But what I did find interesting, and Dennis Lin, you mentioned his piece as well. I think AC wrote about it. And I think maybe Kevin AC asked that question to lead off the conversation today, was about whether or not there was any reports of conflict. Now, what did you hear in AJ Preller's answer as to whether or not Mike Shildt had conflict with members of his staff? And I don't mean just his coaching staff. I just mean the baseball staff overall.
Yeah, and he was asked multiple times, actually. And I think it was the second time he was asked where he kind of answered it a little more. And he said, look, I think what made us so successful is the fact that we were kind of one cohesive group and that we did get along. But he also added that there would be disagreements, but he thinks that that was healthy. And he thinks that it's good to have those open discussions and that open dialogue. And right. Mike had also mentioned multiple times that he and AJ would have disagreements, but that was okay, and that he really appreciated the fact that he could go to AJ and have any conversation and feel good about it. So I don't know, to me, if there was some sort of tiff that people are looking for, some sort of disagreement between Mike and front office, I don't see it being between AJ and Mike. And that's kind of my opinion from what I've assessed after being around the team and kind of hearing what people have said. Maybe that's me being a little too trustworthy of what people have said, but I didn't really feel that it was like Mike and AJ not getting along. Definitely not like it was with Bob and AJ.
I don't think it was a situation where they weren't talking and they couldn't stand each other. I don't think there's going to be a piece coming up from The Athletic, from Dennis, who was great at these pieces, or AC writing about how they hated each other. I don't think it's like that. I think they figured out to work together. I just think it's other people behind the scenes whose names we may not know, who, you know, the fans may not be familiar with. But I thought about this too, because it might be different staff members, right? I think about the way he's talked to us sometimes and the way he's like berated media when he doesn't like their questions, right? And takes great offense. And I wonder if he does that to people on people around that behind the scenes that we don't see. And I'm speculating a little bit just based on what I've heard about how he treated people when he was in St. Louis. We all learn from our mistakes, except people like me. I make the same mistakes over and over and over again. But I do wonder, he was asked separately 3 different times by people who've heard things about whether or not there's conflict. And I just wonder if that led to just how things ended. It's just, to me, it's shocking. Yes, this game, being a manager, working for AJ Preller, of course it takes a toll on you. Having to live baseball and not have your life and live and breathe and being second guessed. And I don't know if he's in social media. I'm not sure where those death threats came from. I'm not sure people send him hate mail. People actually do still write letters, but I hope he is happier and healthier, but I'm sure it took a toll on him. I wonder if there's more that was going on behind the scenes.
And it's really hard to know. Like I wish I had some great statement of like, yeah, definitely this is what had to be going on, and this is definitely. But it's like at some point you either have to take the surface level statement of what Mike is saying, and that it is taking a toll on him, or you have to try and read between the lines. Honestly, you're going to have to make an assumption of it. It's going to be. I don't know if we'll ever know the full truth, like you mentioned about it. One thing I think, by the way, because I've seen a lot of people commenting on the death threats thing, and they're like, oh, how, Padre fans, how could they be so violent? I really don't think this is like a Padre fan thing. I think it's the gambling world and in sports gambling and what we've gotten into and where that's all headed. So I just wanted to make a quick comment that I just think it's bad that people are like, oh, look at this fan base, offering death threats to their manager. I would imagine a lot more of that leans to the sports gambling side of things than anything, but
that's every fan base. That's every fan base. I don't even think it's just sports gambling, because I'll see things that happen, like people blowing up, going crazy. Padres fans, people that I've met in person at Petco Park or in spring training. And I just think people just kind of lose their minds on social media sometimes. Now, they're much kinder and gentler on Threads. I would encourage you all to go ahead and congregate there and leave your comments there. But it's just amazing how emboldened people have become on social media. I mean, all the players hear it. We hear it, media hears it, everybody hears it, especially when I ask a dumb question. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a mess right now. I'm sorry anybody has to go through that. I really am.
Yeah. And it's just like, be better, people. It's so simple. Just be a good human. But to get back to the main point of the discussion, why you think so you seem like you're leaning mostly towards the fact that you don't believe this was just a genuine retirement.
No.
Okay.
Sorry, should I give it more time?
No. I think it's good to have that open dialogue. That's why I'm curious to
I just think
that dialogue.
These jobs are hard. Listen, no one is disputing he's got a great baseball mind. He is a great manager, right? And he was close with those players. I don't think it was just he was close with them, and he had the respect of just about every player in that clubhouse, and especially the important ones, guys like Manny. Every single day you go to Petco Park, and the first thing you would see is Luis Ariz coming up there and big old hug, and Jackson Merrill, right? And Tatis. I mean, he had the respect of some important guys in that locker room. That's why I am blown away that I wish I asked this question. I wish we can get AJ Preller to make it 49 minutes in the Zoom. When you heard this, did anybody fly out there and say, listen, give it some more time. Take some more time. Think about this, man. We have this powerful, we have a great window right now, right? This is the window of winning. You've done something that no Padres manager has ever done in history. So did anyone try to change his mind, or where they're like, you know what, man, this is blowing up. There's black. We're hearing things. That's why it makes me wonder more about the conflict, because how do you let someone like that go? How do you let him go? Just walk off? Then again, why did the Cardinals fire him? Like, I still want that answer. That's all.
Yeah, and the only way to play devil's advocate to that is if you were genuinely concerned about the human's health, and he said, "Look, my health is at jeopardy at this point,
and no one's going to believe
genuinely is at jeopardy." Then you're not going to push somebody to be like, "I know your health's at jeopardy, but you got to get back in that clubhouse." Man, we got to push you to the absolute limit. So that would be the one pushback on that.
Who needs hair? You're good. So what? Your hair is falling out.
Who needs hair? Right? There's
every single day. Wear a hat, dude.
So that would be the one pushback on that. But to your point, if there was the St. Louis situation, now this ends quite interestingly, to put it kindly. So those are two factors that I definitely don't think should be ignored.
I'm as bad as I am at math. I'm putting 2 + 2 together. All right. I know that you have your own show to get to, so I appreciate this. A couple more questions. Anything else stand out to you from the presser? My favorite thing about today was the final question being about Luis Campusano. We're never going to be done talking about Luis Campusano and his role with the Padres. And by the way, speaking of Campusano, Mike Shildt has always toted the company line, like all season long, right? Never says anything bad. But think about what he said when the final few pressers, this is at Chicago, when he was asked about the roster decision. And he kind of, he pretty much told you, I didn't want Campy on this roster. AJ Preller made that move. And I just wonder, like, you know what? There was something going on even back there. Maybe Luis Campusano is what broke Mike Shildt.
If a backup catcher that was going to see 0 playing time in the postseason is what folded the chair, then I don't know what to tell you right there. As far as anything else that stood out during that press conference, I mean, I was most interested in hearing about the AJ Preller contract situation, which we got nothing out of, and more about the decision of Mike Shildt retiring, obviously, the 2 big topics going into that. And I think there were no big surprises in a sense of, look, they're talking that it was Mike making the decision 100% himself based on health and stress, and that AJ's contract, there still needs to be discussions. I know he mentioned that him and Mike were getting lunch today. I would love to be a fly on the table at that lunch and just hear, I mean, if you could just sit there for 5 minutes and listen to the conversation that was taking place there, you would have every answer in the world, although we wouldn't have a job if we could do that. So you would have every answer in the world answered right there, every question answered. But any big things aside from those 2 that stood out to you, aside from Ethan Salas's health?
Ethan Salas's health. I thought what he said about Yu Darvish was a little bit telling. Like, I don't know that I'm banking on Yu Darvish returning next season. There are people that I talked to that know him well that thought he was done baseball wise. And I think he wants to go out a certain way. I'm thinking about the way his training partner and former teammate Clayton Kershaw is going to retire. And, you know, you want to go out a certain way, maybe on your own terms. And I just wonder if Yu Darvish wants to go through all of that again next year, just to grind through and maybe give them, you know, a better outing. So it's going to be a really interesting offseason.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you make, because he was asked about you, and he really didn't give a convincing answer that you was going to be returning in full force. And I'm not going to say that 100% means something, but considering how you answered questions after Game 3 in Chicago and how AJ answered the questions today, you definitely have a lot of us thinking that he's probably leaning towards retirement and going out on his terms too. So, not saying that's true, but definitely feels that way.
Okay, give me your hunch for manager. Now we're going to have to listen to me. I thought I was going to give you time off. I'm sorry, Jake, but until the Padres make their decision on the manager and AJ Preller's future, I'm going to demand that you join me 7 days a week. I apologize for the inconvenience, but we have a lot to talk about. I was supposed to have Daniel Jeremiah on the show today, talk some NFL. Sorry, DJ, you've been shilted. Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's right. You were gonna talk to DJ about a couple of things for the NFL.
Changing of the guard in the NFL. The Bills are done. The Ravens are done. Let's go. Bears
2 straight losses for the Bills. Come on. I mean, that's my hunch on manager. It's such a tough thing to pick. AJ Ellis seems like he could be one of the hot topics. People.
Former catchers made great managers. Boch. I don't think it's Bochy, but anyways, go on.
I don't think it's Bochy either. No. Just because I love the human being, Ruben Niebla would make my day. I don't know if they want to go with a rookie manager in this situation, but Ruben, I mean, they don't make the humans any better. I've never been treated nicer by anybody as a media member than the way Ruben has treated me. So
he's incredible. He was shaking hands with everybody in the clubhouse after they were eliminated at Wrigley Field. So I agree with you there.
Selfishly, I would love Ruben to get the gig. But one thing about AJ is that you can never predict which route he's going to go. So I think picking a manager would be difficult. Ryan, as we mentioned, would be a hot topic one. Any other ones that stood out to you that you feel is going to be there?
I think I'm going to go between. I say Flaherty, AJ Ellis, one of those two. If AJ, and again, AJ Preller wanted his guy, so who they hire this time around will be telling to me for AJ Preller's future.
I think very much so. I think the writing will be in the tea leaves quite easily once you see who they hire as their manager, as far as a contract for AJ Preller moving forward will be is pretty obvious.
All right. Jake Garegnani, you are the absolute best. I know you have to go and do your own thing. Thank you so much for putting up with me. And I win. You owe me tacos because it was over 30 minutes. It was a 44-minute AJ Preller Zoom, and I still had 5 more questions I really, really wanted to ask, but it was long enough. So thank you for joining me. For those of you sticking around, I'm going to play just like two quick clips from AJ Preller. Any final thoughts, Jake Garegnani?
I owe you tacos and a beer because you bought me a beer in Chicago too when we did that show. So you let me know when. Appreciate you as always, and you seem to always be right. So I'll be coming back to you for the answers.
I'm never right. All right, have a great show, and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Marty. Take care. Much love.
Bye, Jake. All right, that was Jake Garegnani from CBS. He has his own show. You can watch it later tonight on Channel 8. All right, I'm going to play you just a couple quick questions. Here is the opening from the UT's Kevin Acee asking AJ Preller questions about how this whole thing unfolded. Here's a little bit from AJ Preller today, and you can watch the entire thing at Marty Time TV on YouTube. 1 second, guys.
About it, and did it have anything to do with any sort of conflict with anyone in the organization from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think, to me, it was probably more of a surprise than a shock. I mean, I think, we obviously talk all the time throughout the season, and you get a feel for, like where he's at, where his mindset and everything like that. I think when we left Chicago, last week, he said, hey, let me get 5 or 6 days to kind of recharge the battery, kind of talking about being burnt out a little bit. And he went back home to the Carolinas. I talked to him, multiple times last week. It was more small talk, just kind of checking in, seeing how things were going, talking about starting to get ready for the off season, starting our review process. And then when we got to this weekend, you could tell that he was just having some thoughts about what it all meant. And Saturday he got back to myself and John and Eric, and just eventually said, hey, this is something that I just don't have the energy to do, physically, mentally, don't don't see myself continuing in this spot. So that's kind of the last week. Again, like as the year was going on, we always have conversations about where we're at, what we're thinking, everything like that. So again, probably more of a surprise than shock.
So like that's the entire scope of like your understanding of why he walked away is just being burnt out.
Yeah, I mean, I think these jobs, at the end of the day, like, it's baseball. It's a lot of fun. It's, I mean, it brings a lot of joy to a lot of people. And, but it's a lot of time that goes into these jobs. I mean, I think it's 162 game season. It's 180 days. It's the off season. It's not really the off season anymore. The way Mike goes about his job, it's not much of an off season, honestly. He's involved heavily in terms of player plans and programming and, working with staff. So again, I think in hearing from Mike and, when you talk about somebody that throws every fiber of his being into helping the Padres or helping the team that he's a part of, that's how Mike goes about it. That's how a lot of people in the baseball world go about it, but Mike specifically.
Okay, so that was AJ Preller saying that it was a surprise and not a shock, talking about how the entire thing unfolded. He maybe had an inkling a little bit, but it really went down in Chicago when Mike Shildt said, I need time, man. I need some time. He got his time, told the Padres this coming Saturday. All right, AJ Preller was asked 3 different times about his contract status. And this is important stuff because it's very, very rare for a manager and a general manager to go into the lame duck of their season. And that's what AJ Preller is entering actually right now. And there are going to be openings for him if he does not factor into the Padres' long-term plans. That's why it's important for them to go ahead and figure it out. Here is AJ Preller being asked about his contract situation.
I think like in terms of, my situation and the contract, obviously that'll be between me and ownership and, what that process looks like. And again, I think, we'll have those conversations here going forward. But, I think from, myself and the rest of the baseball ops group, a lot of confidence and faith in like our roster, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to build. And that's going to be a big emphasis and focus here over the course of the next few months from our end, is putting a championship team on the field for next year and the future.
Do you view that though as maybe a concern for potential your next manager who might not know, exactly what the future or the organization future of baseball ops is?
I mean, I think it's a really attractive job. I mean, I think it's obviously we, play in a beautiful ballpark. Everybody talks about the atmosphere has been created by the fans of San Diego. You get 3.5 million fans coming to the ballpark, year in, year out. It's as good an atmosphere as there is in the game. I think it's like I mentioned, it's a great organization. We produce players. We put talented rosters on the field. We go to the playoffs. I think it's the challenge of winning a World Series in a city that hasn't done it before. And we have some phenomenal players and staff. So it's, I can only tell you, like, just in the last few hours, you get a lot of people reaching out. I think I think from my eyes, it's an attractive position and job. And I can tell from the interest that's been coming in and then some of the conversations that have happened here in the last few hours, like it's viewed that way in the baseball community.
All right, so that's AJ Preller not really answering the question on his own contract situation, but he's right. I mean, it is an attractive job. You still have some star players on this team, but there are some payroll questions, and I think there's a lot of questions about the ownership group and who the general manager and the president of baseball ops is going to be. So we shall see what happens. I'll say this, and we've said this consistently. The San Diego Padres are many things, but under AJ Preller, they are never boring. So we shall see what happens. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me and all your comments. A little bit of an odd time today, but AJ spoke to the media around 10 o'clock, so I had to scrap the normal time of my show. I see some interesting comments here on the chat. Some people ask Ichiro. Now, why isn't Ichiro in the conversation for manager? I mean, does he want to manage? And I see the name Albert Pujols. I know he's very, very close with Tatis, of course, and Manny Machado, but he is considered a favorite for the Angels job after Ron Washington is done. He was not renewed. And he also has that 10-year personal service contract with Artie Moreno and the Angels. So I don't know if that's going to happen here in San Diego. One more thing, because I did ask AJ, like, who's going to be part of this the sit down for the next manager? Because in the past, I think, Trevor Hoffman's been in that group. Of course, you're going to have Eric Grupner involved. John Seidler will be involved, whereas in the past it was Peter Seidler. I'm just curious, which of these players, how much involvement do they want from Manny Machado on who the next manager is going to be? We know that he's probably going to say he wants Ryan Flaherty, his guy in Baltimore. Do you want Fernando Tatis in that conversation? Who are the guys? Is it Jackson Merrill? Is it Joe Musgrove? So I'm just curious as to what the sit down is going to be like when the Padres talk to all the candidates. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching, for being part of this show today. It's a little bit of a frantic day. I am Marty Caswell. I want to thank Jake Garegnani of CBS once again for joining me. We are brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. And if you want more from AJ Preller today, all 44 minutes, you can find the entirety on my channel on Marty Time TV. All right, guys. Happy Tuesday. PB is flooded. It's a mess after all the rains. Everyone be safe out there. We will probably talk to you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. And thanks again. Hamul, brought to you by the all-new Hamul Casino Resort, the Players Place. Have a great day. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye.